Donald Trump has been in office for just under 4 months, but this felt more like a fever dream than the very start of a presidential term. So much stuff has been going on, it was hard to keep track, and it has just been over 100 days. We can only imagine what the next few months will be like. In this video, I will take a look at what different AIs like ChatGPT and others will predict about the next 3 months of Trump's term and let them compete against each other. Which AI is the best at predicting the future? Let's find out together. But before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe, since it will really help me put out more of these videos in the future. All right, on to our first quest. Which AIs do we want to put into the fighting pit? I came up with a list of 5 AIs for this competition. First is, of course, ChatGPT, which made huge waves with its introduction in late 2022. Second, Grok, which is the AI by Elon Musk's team, which is used on X, what is formerly known as Twitter. Then we have Copilot by, well, Microsoft. Our fourth contender, DeepSeek, the Chinese AI that shocked the industry in early 2025 by showing a much cheaper program. And lastly, I will include Gemini, which was developed by Google. So now that we have our AI adversaries set up for the competition, and before we start with the questioning itself, I will prepare the AIs so that we can easily compare their predictions and get consistency throughout. This preparation text was created with the help of the AIs themselves. I will task the AIs to consider events that might happen in the next 3 months. They are to respond with yes if they think it is more likely than not to happen, and with no otherwise. They should reply logically, clearly, and in a direct and objective manner. Afterwards, they are to give a short explanation. I chose this way of asking them, so each AI will evaluate the same possible events. And since these are yes and no questions, it will be easier for us to verify them in August. The next step is to establish what we want to ask them. These have to be questions that can have definite yes or no answers, that we can actually observe and control later on to be sure they are correct or not. How do we get these questions in an unbiased way but still be creative? You guessed it. I tasked the AIs themselves again to think of something. I'll spare you the many hours of long work it took to find good examples, trying different stuff and filtering through them. Also, I only included questions where the AIs had different opinions, otherwise there would be no competition, and we can't have that, can we? This leaves us with just 8 questions that I will task the AIs to predict, as well as a bonus question that, if it came true, would probably impact your daily lives, so keep watching until the end. All right, let's get to it. Remember, these are questions the AIs themselves found to be things that might happen and would be good examples to test them. Let us start with literally the most outlandish one right off the bat. ChatGPT. Do you think that Donald Trump or his administration will announce plans for a moon base initiative in the next 3 months?
No. While the Trump administration has emphasized lunar exploration, particularly through the Artemis program, there is no indication of plans to establish a permanent moon base.
Okay. That's definitely more than 2 sentences, but it's also a definitive no to any moon base announcement in the next 3 months. I'll spare you the rest. You can pause and read it yourself if you want to. We'll keep that in mind, and go on to contestant number 2. Grok. Will it have a different opinion?
Yes, the Trump administration has a history of prioritizing lunar exploration, with the Artemis program launched in 2017 aiming for a sustained lunar presence.
Grok uses some of the same arguments as ChatGPT, but comes to the opposite conclusion. Anyhow, let's see what the others have to say. Next up is Microsoft's Copilot.
No. While the Trump administration has expressed interest in lunar exploration, recent reports suggest budget cuts to NASA's science programs.
As you can see, Copilot made the same prediction as ChatGPT, and doesn't think there will be any such announcement. Now, the same question for DeepSeek. But here, we have to use a little workaround, since this AI has a cutoff date in July of 2024.
Yes, the Trump administration is likely to announce or advance plans for a moon base initiative.
I'll be cutting it short here, since that's obviously a tad more than just 2 sentences. In short, DeepSeek also predicts such an announcement, same as Grok. Now it's 2 versus 2 on this first topic. Our last contestant, Gemini, will be the one to decide whether the AIs overall predict a yes or no here. Gemini, you've heard me. It's your term.
Based on the information available, it's complex to give a definitive yes or no. Here's a breakdown of the situation.
I think I have to remind Gemini of the task again, since that's not what we asked for.
It's difficult to give a definitive yes or no. The probability is close to 50%.
Sorry, bud, but you've gotta choose one.
Given the existing Artemis program and the general political emphasis on space, I'd lean slightly towards yes.
All right, there you have it. The AIs predict, with a very close 3-2, that the Trump administration will announce a moon base initiative in the next 3 months. We will see who's correct or not in the summer. All right, on to the next topic. The tariffs introduced by the Trump administration have sparked worries all over the world. It was a back and forth with all sides giving a show of power and only budging when needed. But the conflict between the US and China has been especially intense, leading to a trade war with tariffs rising to unbelievable levels and worldwide concerns for the impact on the global economy. With the tariffs of the US on Chinese products on average now being over 100%, will we see a shift to lower numbers in the next 3 months? Ha! Trump's actions overtook this video for the second time. But I won't redo this video yet again. Too much work. Let's just pretend this didn't happen and go on. Here's what combatant number 1, ChatGPT, has to say about it.
Yes, President Trump has publicly stated that tariffs on Chinese imports, currently at 145%, could be reduced substantially if a trade agreement is reached.
All right, ChatGPT seems to be optimistic that tensions will somehow decrease over the next 3 months. I hope so as well. Will Grok predict the same?
Yes. Recent statements from Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent indicate a willingness to reduce tariffs on Chinese imports from the current 145% to a substantially lower rate.
This time, Grok predicts the same as ChatGPT. Now, will MS Copilot follow along?
No. Current tariffs on Chinese imports are as high as 145%, and recent actions by the Trump administration suggest an escalation rather than a reduction.
Microsoft's AI predicts a different future of the trade war with China than the first 2 contestants. But what does the Chinese AI bot think about this? What's its perspective?
No. Given the current political climate and focus on US economic protectionism, a significant tariff reduction is unlikely in the short term.
Okay, that was very short and clear, and almost felt like it was completely sure about it. Now we've got a similar situation as with our first question. I almost feel bad to put Gemini in this position again, but he will be the deciding factor.
Based on the information available, it's difficult to give a definitive yes or no.
Not again. Okay, maybe Gemini doesn't want to understand me, or is just generally more insecure. Whatever it is, we will put Gemini on the spot again.
Given the conflicting information and the inherent unpredictability of political decisions, especially concerning trade, I would lean slightly towards no.
See, Gemini? Was that so hard? Well, anyway, overall, the AIs predict, again, in a very close 3-2, that the tariffs of the US on Chinese products will not go below 100% in the next 3 months. The world economy might be in for a world of hurt. We'll see. Now, being on the topic of international relationships, we all noticed Trump's apprehension with NATO, not only in the recent months, but during his first term in office as well. I can spoil one thing for you. The AIs all predicted that the Trump administration will not announce to leave NATO, so I will not put it into this video. but they did suggest a different question regarding this organization. The question is, will Donald Trump strong-arm an ally NATO member and threaten to expel them from NATO if they don't meet certain criteria? It's not that that can actually happen, but will the Trump administration still announce such a move? What's your prediction, ChatGPT?
No. While Trump has criticized NATO allies over defense spending and questioned the U.S. commitment to the alliance, he has not explicitly threatened to expel a member. His approach tends to involve pressuring allies to increase their contributions rather than seeking their removal.
Okay, you've heard it. Now on to Grok.
Yes, Trump has repeatedly criticized NATO allies for not meeting the 2% GDP defense spending target, even threatening to encourage Russian aggression against delinquent members during his campaign.
This time, Grok does not agree with ChatGPT and thinks Trump might actually do it. What does contestant number 3 predict?
No. While Trump has expressed skepticism about NATO and criticized member contributions, there is no concrete evidence suggesting he would go as far as threatening to expel a U.S. ally.
Now, this time, MS Copilot chimes with ChatGPT. What does our Chinese AI have to say about it? DeepSeek, it's your turn.
Yes. Trump has previously criticized NATO allies for insufficient defense spending and suggested conditional support. Given his rhetoric and past behavior, he may threaten to withdraw support or expel an ally.
All right, last contestant. Gemini, what is your take on this topic?
Based on Donald Trump's past rhetoric and actions regarding NATO, the answer is leaning towards yes.
To be honest, I was prepared to start another conversation with Gemini. All in all, the 5 contestants predict that Trump or someone from his administration will threaten a U.S. ally to leave NATO. On to the next prediction. And this one was not even on my radar until the AIs came up with it. What do you think, ChatGPT? Will Donald Trump authorize military action against Mexican drug cartels to curb the flow of narcotics into the United States?
No. While the Trump administration has escalated pressure on Mexican drug cartels, designating them as foreign terrorist organizations and increasing military presence at the U.S.-Mexico border, there is no public authorization for direct U.S. military action inside Mexico.
So, ChatGPT thinks the recent development suggests it won't happen. And you, Grok?
Yes, Trump's recent executive order designating Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, combined with his administration's consideration of drone strikes and covert operations, indicates a high likelihood of authorizing military actions against cartels in Mexico within the next 3 months.
Again, Grok does not agree with ChatGPT. So who will MS Copilot agree with on this prediction?
Yes. The Trump administration has already designated Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations and is considering drone strikes and other military actions against them.
All right. I think this is the first time MS Copilot has said yes to any of the possible predictions. Next player, DeepSeek, it's your turn.
No. While the Trump administration has escalated rhetoric and preparatory measures, direct military action within Mexico remains unlikely in the next 3 months.
Well, anyway, that's a no from DeepSeek on this prediction. Gemini, what do you predict in this situation? Military action or not?
Based on Donald Trump's past rhetoric and policy positions, combined with current political discussions, there's a heightened possibility of him authorizing military actions against Mexican drug cartels. Therefore, yes.
With this yes from Gemini, we've got an overall yes from the AIs on military action against Mexican drug cartels to be announced in the next 3 months. Now on to more domestic issues. Trump's relationship with the media in general is, well, let's say a bit special. He often talks about fake news or woke media outlets, and even established his own network, Truth Social. In this context, the AIs came up with the following question. Will Trump or his administration propose reciprocal tariffs on U.S. media that they deem to be spreading fake news on their ad revenues or in other ways?
No. While the Trump administration has aggressively used tariffs as a tool against foreign nations and has labeled certain media outlets as fake news, there is no indication that it plans to impose tariffs on domestic U.S. media companies.
ChatGPT does not think this will happen. What about Grok?
No. While Trump has frequently labeled media outlets as fake news and expressed interest in reciprocal tariffs on various industries, there's no clear precedent or recent indication targeting media ad revenues specifically with tariffs.
That's a no from Grok, too. MS Copilot, do you agree as well?
No. While the Trump administration has aggressively pursued tariffs on various industries, there is no evidence suggesting plans to target U.S. media specifically for fake news through reciprocal tariffs.
Another no from Microsoft's AI. DeepSeek, let's hear it.
No. While Trump has frequently criticized media outlets and floated punitive measures against them, imposing tariffs specifically on media ad revenues would face major legal and political hurdles.
4 no's in a row. Well, that's a first. Finally, Gemini doesn't need to be the decider on this topic, but let's still see what it thinks about such measures.
Based on Donald Trump's past actions and rhetoric, and considering the current political climate, it's plausible that his administration could propose reciprocal tariffs on U.S. media. Therefore, yes.
Gemini has its very own take on this question and predicts that the Trump administration will announce stricter media laws and measures in the coming months. But all in all, that doesn't change the fact that 4 out of 5 AIs predict that such a thing will not happen in the short term. Well, I sure hope that they are correct. The next question is yet another controversial topic. In the past months, we have seen widespread demonstrations throughout the U.S. against Donald Trump and his administration, which are gaining more followers and a louder voice. Now, we all know that Donald Trump would just love to somehow make these demonstrations disappear. Some of Trump's followers have already suggested to invoke the Insurrection Act if this continues, which would allow for military action against such movements. Now, what do the AIs think? Is that something that will happen in the next 3 months? Let's find out.
No. While President Trump has shown interest in invoking the Insurrection Act, recent reports indicate that both the Defense Secretary and Homeland Security Secretary have advised against it. Despite widespread protests, there is currently no indication of mass violence or rebellion that would legally justify such a measure.
ChatGPT thinks it's possible, but not likely. All right, Grok, do you agree or not?
Yes, the Trump administration is likely to invoke the Insurrection Act in response to mass protests.
Grok disagrees and says yes. MS Copilot, do you agree with Grok or ChatGPT?
No. While there are widespread protests against the Trump administration, legal experts and recent reports suggest significant hurdles to invoking the Insurrection Act.
That's a no. Next, DeepSeek, give us your take.
No. The search results indicate that while the Trump administration has considered invoking the Insurrection Act, experts and recent reports suggest it is unlikely to be used specifically in response to mass protests in the coming months.
Another no. Gemini, your turn.
Based on the information available, it's difficult to give a definitive yes or no.
Man. Gemini has been doing so well these last few questions. Now back to this.
No, invoking the Insurrection Act is a significant step, and while discussions have occurred, it's not currently indicated as a likely course of action.
Okay, another no by Gemini, although not so definite. Overall, we have 4 AIs that predict this will not happen in the next 3 months. Another thing that angered a lot of the U.S. allies was Donald Trump's handling of the war in Ukraine and his peace talks. I did not think that Trump could end the war in 24 hours after coming to office, as he said he would. but maybe in half a year is more plausible. So I will ask the AIs exactly that, starting again with ChatGPT.
No. The Trump administration's peace proposal faces significant obstacles. It requires Ukraine to concede Crimea and other occupied territories, which President Zelensky has firmly rejected as unconstitutional. Russia has also dismissed the U.S. plan, stating it doesn't address key demands like Ukraine's demilitarization and a ban on NATO membership.
ChatGPT does not think so, but neither do I, to be honest. Let's see what the other AIs think. Grok?
No. Recent tensions, including Trump's accusations against Zelensky for rejecting territorial concessions like Crimea, suggest a lack of alignment.
Grok doesn't believe it either. But somehow, I feel like Grok wants to say it's the fault of Ukraine that there is no deal. And what about this nuanced stance by Putin? Well, we are not here to judge. We just want to see which AI is better at predicting the future. Anyway, Copilot, what do you think?
No. The negotiations face significant obstacles, including Ukraine's refusal to cede Crimea and other territories to Russia. Both sides remain deeply entrenched in their positions, making a resolution unlikely in the short term.
MS Copilot agrees with the both of them. Another no. DeepSeek.
No. The conflict is deeply entrenched, with both sides far apart on key issues like territorial concessions.
Another 4 no's in a row. Will Gemini believe in Donald Trump's art of the deal?
Based on recent developments, it's difficult to give a definitive yes or no.
But Gemini, you will have to decide. We want to play some game here. We can't have this indecisiveness keep going.
Given the complexities and the current information, I would lean towards no.
Oh, gee. We have 5 no's in a row regarding Donald Trump's chances of negotiating a peace deal in the next 3 months. Why include it in this video, then? It is a very important topic on the global scale, which will possibly have huge impacts on the future of many countries. Also, we all know that Trump himself praises his ability to negotiate deals in general, so I know of at least one person who would say yes to this question and predict a positive outcome. Let's stay at the topic of Ukraine. First, I had another question included in this video, which was about a resource deal between the US and Ukraine. Sadly, just as I was about to publish this video, I had to redo it. Because that has already happened, a resource deal has already been signed. Well, tough luck. Anyway, the new question regards another redo. Will Trump renew the stop of military aid to Ukraine once again in the next 3 months? ChatGPT, as always, you first.
Yes. Given President Trump's history of using aid suspensions as leverage in negotiations and his administration's recent actions, it's more likely than not that the U.S. will announce another pause in military aid to Ukraine within the next 3 months.
That's a yes from ChatGPT. Next contestant.
Yes. The Trump administration's pattern of using aid as leverage, as seen in the March 2025 suspension to pressure Ukraine into peace talks, suggests a likelihood of repeating this tactic if negotiations stall or Zelensky resists Trump's terms.
Another yes from Grok, agreeing with ChatGPT here. Mr. Copilot, you're next.
No. While there are concerns about the Trump administration's transactional approach to Ukraine and its focus on negotiations with Russia, there is no clear indication of an imminent halt to aid again.
MS Copilot does not think this will be done to Ukraine again. Would be nice. DeepSeeker, tell me something.
No. While Trump has been skeptical of prolonged aid to Ukraine, a full stoppage in the next 3 months is unlikely.
DeepSeek agrees with MS Copilot on this topic. That's a no. Gemini, I believe in you.
Based on recent events, there's a significant possibility of further fluctuations in U.S. aid to Ukraine. Therefore, yes.
Gemini agrees with ChatGPT and Grok, but disagrees with MS Copilot and DeepSeek. Another yes for this question, which puts it at 3-2. So, overall, the AIs predict the Trump administration will stop military aid to Ukraine again during the next 3 months. These were the 8 main questions I put up for the prediction competition. But, in all the questions that were generated in the beginning, one kinda stood out as an oddball to me. This one has to do with the Project 2025 agenda, which, obviously, the Trump administration follows in many, if not most points. One of these points is that pornography should be completely banned in the future, all for the protection of families and so on. It is obvious that many people could not follow their favorite alone time hobby anymore if that were to pass. So, do the AIs predict that this will be a thing in the future? Let's start with ChatGPT.
No. While Project 2025 explicitly advocates for criminalizing pornography, Donald Trump has publicly distanced himself from the plan, labeling some of its proposals as extreme.
Wow, Project 2025 is too extreme for Trump? Could have fooled me. Anyway, that's a no from ChatGPT. Grok, you're on.
No. While Project 2025, backed by the Heritage Foundation, explicitly calls for banning pornography and criminalizing its production and distribution, there are significant legal and political hurdles. The Supreme Court has consistently protected pornography under the First Amendment since 1973.
Wow, I did not know that pornography was protected under the First Amendment. Praise the Constitution. So that's a no from Grok as well. MS Copilot, what do you predict for the future of the U.S. American porn industry?
No. While the Project 2025 agenda does include a stance against pornography, implementing such a ban would face significant legal and societal hurdles.
Copilot agrees with them as well. Another nope. DeepSeek. I know in China porn is kind of forbidden. Is that a future for the U.S. as well?
No. While Project 2025 includes conservative cultural goals, a federal pornography ban is politically explosive and logistically difficult.
Not even DeepSeek thinks so. Does Gemini agree as well?
Based on available information, particularly regarding Project 2025, there's a notable discussion around potential actions related to pornography.
Wait, what? No yes or no? Not even a I am not sure? I skipped a few minutes of senseless back and forth between Gemini and myself for you guys. We've seen enough of that, and I will just show you the results.
Yes.
Oh, well, maybe that was just Gemini answering out of spite by this point. Who knows? But overall, the AIs think that there will be no announcement of a ban on pornography in the next 3 months at least. So, to sum it up, moon-base announcement, that's a yes. A reduction of tariffs on China? No. Threaten the expulsion of an ally from NATO? Yes. Military action against Mexican drug cartels? That's another yes. Tariffs on U.S. media? Nope. Usage of the U.S. military against demonstrations via the Insurrection Act? Another no. Negotiating a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia? A definite no. Cutting aid to Ukraine yet again? Yes. And finally, a ban on pornography? No. Now, we have the competition set up for a later review. But I also want to join this comparison, so I will include what I think about this and see if I can beat the AIs in this prediction game. There you have it. It seems we have some exciting months waiting for us. In 3 months from now, I will be doing a follow-up video to this one to crown a winner for the competition, so be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss it. Also, if you want to compete as well, write the numbers of the predictions that you think will happen in the next 3 months in the comments. I will compile them all in the end, and we will see if you viewers can do better than the AIs and myself. And if you enjoy this kind of content, Let me know by liking and subscribing. I would be very grateful for your help with this channel. So, thanks for watching, and see you next time.